Hi, I'm your presenter for today, and my name is Andrea Viscayno, and I'm showing you this topic called population and sample. Introduction. In research, population and sample are two key concepts used in the process of data collecting and analysis. Understanding the distinction between them is fundamental for designing a study and making valid inferences from the results. So, what is population? So, the population refers to the entire group of individuals or items that a researcher is interested in studying. It is the complete set of subject or observation that share certain characteristics. In most research, it's often impractical, time-consuming, or expensive to collect data from every individual or item in the population. Hence, the population represents the full scope of the study's focus. So, here is it. The population is a group of students, or let's say employees, who are interested in the research studies. So, let me give you an example of the population. The population is generally defined by the researcher before the study begins, and its scope depends on the research objectives. So, I'll give you example number 1. All the students in particular university, if studying university-wide behaviors. Example number 2, all the employees in specific company if studying workplace satisfaction. So, for example, this is another example. So, this all employees in specific company. So, if you're conducting a study that is all about that you need to collect a survey from the employees who, let's say, employees of a food factory. So all the employees in a specific company if studying a workplace satisfaction. So if you're going to conduct a study about a food survey, a what do you call that? If you're going to conduct a study where there's a food factory and there's an employees and all of them are like in a group, you need to interview them in a group. So that's the example of the population. Last example, all voters in country if studying. Example number 3, example number 3, all voters in a country if studying electoral behavior. So those are the examples of the population. So this is a population and sample. So what is the sample? We're done talking about the population. Let's move on to the sample. So a sample is a subset of the population that is selected for the actual study. Since studying an entire population is often not feasible, a sample is chosen to represent the population. The goal is for the sample to be representative of the population so that conclusions drawn from the sample can be generalized to the larger population. The key characteristics of a sample, there are 2, sampling process and sample size. Sampling process, what is this? the way a sample is selected is critical to the study's validity. If the sample is chosen randomly or with other sound sampling techniques, it can provide a reliable estimate of the population. Sample size. The size of the sample depends on the research design and the desired precision of the results. Larger samples generally lead to more accurate estimates but require more resources. So, examples of the samples. Example number 1, I'll give you 3 examples of the sample. A survey of 500 students from a university. So this is like counted, mga unlimited siya. To represent the entire student body. Example number 2, a random selection of 200 employees from a company to represent the workplace. A group of 1,000 randomly selected voters to predict voting behavior of the entire population. So those are the examples of the samples. So what is the relationship between population and sample? So there's inferences. Researchers collect data from the sample and use it to make inferences about the population. The sample could accurately reflect the population to minimize sampling errors and bias. So there's another one. There's sampling techniques. Various sampling methods exist, such as simple random sampling, stratified sampling, and cluster sampling, each with its strengths and weaknesses in terms of representatives and accuracy. So why we use sample? Why do we use sample? Why use a sample? Cost and time. There's cost and time. Gathering data from entire population can be expensive and time consuming because population is very time consuming. Practically, in many cases, the population is too large to study comprehensively. So that's why we prefer sample, kasi kay mas dali. It's more easy. And last, statistical efficiency. A well-chosen sample can provide results that are just accurate as studying the whole population, but with less effort and expense. So that's why we use sample. That's why we prefer using sample. Last slide is the conclusion. In summary, the population is the entire group the researcher wants to study, and the sample is the subset of that group from which data is actually collected. A carefully selected sample using sound sampling techniques allows researchers to make valid generalization and conclusion about the larger population, making it a cornerstone of the empirical research. So, thank you guys. And that is the population and sample. Thanks for listening, everyone.